Today we're going to be looking at one of the most promising archetypes coming out from the Obsidian Flames expansion, the Charizard EX archetype. It's a very powerful Stage 2 Pokemon, which means it's going to need a little bit of help to get set up. That's why you're seeing Arceus VSTAR as well as the new Pidgeot EX to help us cherry pick pieces throughout the game to actually make this sort of clunky Stage 2 actually come online pretty quickly. The idea is Starbirth can help us get initially rare candy combos for Charizard, but sometimes can, in situations where you have a pretty solid hand, go Candy Pidgeot, then get a refund on one of your Starbirth cards with a quick search from Pidgeot, and then you know that you have this Pokemon set up for the remainder of the game to keep getting value for you. That quick search ability allows you to, once per turn, get any card from your deck directly into your hand. So really helps us continue throughout the game, making sure we're hitting crucial supporter cards like Boss and Iono, as well as making sure we're keeping up on board state with Charizard streaming towards the sort of mid to late game, because of course Charizard is that new card from the set where the Burning Darkness attack does 180 base damage for 2 fire. Not all that appealing, although it's very good at dealing with single prize Pokemon. But as the game progresses, it gets more and more powerful because you deal 30 more damage for each prize card your opponent has taken. So definitely towards the later stages in the game, we can be hitting something like 300 damage quite easily. So we're normally going to either use Charizard in the opening stages to get through single prize Pokemon and work towards that later game stage into the multi-prizes, or we're going to come out the gate swinging with Arceus, which has that 200 base damage threshold at the beginning of the game. If you're not using Double Turbo, of course, we can use the Infernal Rain ability from Charizard to fully power up an Arceus in one go, just shoving 3 fires immediately onto it. And 200 is a good number, because then you can Choice Belt up and hit 230 with your Arc. So although we're using Starbirth for the consistency side of things, it's also an actually better attacker in this deck, because you're not forced into the double turbos. We still play a couple. Again, the Arceus and the Pidgeot can both use DT quite effectively here. But if we want to get around the reduction, we can Charizard immediately onto Arc and then have the Choice Belt. This ability from Charizard EX can't be understated how powerful it is. Infernal Rain, as soon as we evolve, we can grab 3 basic fire and attach them to our Pokemon in any way that we like. Very flexible and powerful energy acceleration, immediately filling the deck for you, which is fantastic as well. Similar to how we've seen Trinity Nova in the past do a similar job. We do that with the Charizard now. It means we can pay retreat out of Pokemon like Mew, for example. That's why you're seeing that in the list. But also means we can power up the Charizard very easily, as well as Arc and Pidge. So a lot of ways we can get these Pokemon online pretty contently. So we are playing a thick line of the Charizard. Quick note on Charmander. In 151, we will get a 70 hit point Charmander, but for now we have 2 60 hit point ones. In the videos, you'll see me using this Tail on Fire Charmander, which just deals 10 damage, but can pull a fire out of the deck and attach it immediately to this Pokemon. I think it's close with the Obsidian Flames one. The Obsidian Flames one deals 30 damage and deals 10 to itself. Putting yourself down to 50 hit points, I imagine it's just getting knocked out no matter what anyway. So it's not a huge deal. The main reason I like Tail on Fire is I think that 30 and 10 is more or less the same range of damage when we're thinking about what we can do with Arc as a follow-up attack, or what we could do with Charizard as a follow-up attack if you assume the Charamander's getting knocked out anyway. So I feel like the damage output isn't all that different. The upside of this option is that you're slightly better if your opponent is gusting around your Charmander, right? If they're trying to target down your Arc for a 2-prize knockout instead, you then have a 2-energy Charmander. Then if you're candying up into Charizard, you no longer need your abilities even online. You could, you know, evolve into Charizard even under Path and make sure you're still swinging. So it's a minor thing there. I think it's close, honestly, and you could just play a split of the Charmanders. It's not that really big of a deal. You're really in panic stations if you're using that attack anyway, but just a small thing I wanted to bear in mind. But yeah, the Charizard, just super overstated Pokemon, to be honest with you. Dark typing we know is great for helping out against Mew, where you have a mammoth amount of hit points, and you're probably going to throw 2 Charizards at them throughout the game. And it's also quite strong into Gardevoir EX, where of course we can gust those up and knock them out very early on. You know, we're hitting 360 immediately out the gate. So yeah, really, really powerful Pokemon. And just in other situations, we can be setting up that sort of 2-shot game quite happily with Arc and Charizard, knowing that you are working towards that late game where you will eventually get a 1-hit KO, which is really powerful. Similar for the Pidgey that we will be getting in 151, there will be an upgrade to this card where it has a call for family attack, but for right now we need to have the 60 hit point vanilla Pidge. The Pidgeot, not just the quick search ability, is already a natural pivot in the deck as a free retreater, which is really nice, and the Blustery Wind can be a way for us to discard stadiums, actually, so it can be something we can use to knock out single prize Pokemon or finish off heavily damaged Pokemon, whilst also getting rid of more Path bounces. We are playing 4 copies of Stadiums here, but Path really is the nemesis of this deck. I think from the testing games I've had, it's really just been... my struggles have come from if a Path has been developed too early and I've not had a natural bounce in hand, and I haven't been able to start birth into the game, essentially is the long and short of it. So we may see some of that in the games today, but outside of that, it's felt very smooth and a very powerful deck overall. The fact that we have this ability from Charizard means we get to play quite a skimpy count of these energies, knowing that Rod can be a decent reload for us during any point in the game, knowing that these can be plenty to see us through, even for just our Charizards and the Arcs anyway. I am playing Radiant Charizard, and this would seem like a no-brainer because you're using Fire Energy already, and 250 is a big burst of damage for a single prize Pokemon. But I have also been thinking about Radiant Alakazam as a decent option in the deck as well, actually. Because, like I said, when we're going through the motions of sometimes in a sort of 2-hit KO war in the opening stages with our Arcs and our Charizards, definitely if we've gone second in the game, hitting into initial like V-Star Pokemon from the opponent's end, it would be really nice to have some Painful Spoons options here and there to try and push your Burning Darkness into 1-hit KOs like a turn earlier, if that makes sense. So I'm actually a little bit interested in Radiant Alakazam making it into the list as well, and I think it would have additional upside into the Gardevoir matchup, which, yes, we hit for weakness, but that's only on their EX, and that would be a 2-prizer attacking into a 2-prizer anyway, and they still have single-prize attacking threats, of course, that can get through our 280 hit point Pokemon very easily with Guardy, but even with like Reversal Energy, they could be hitting through the Charizard EX. So I think there's actual really big reasons to like trying out Radiant Alakazam in the deck list, and that's my sort of next exploration with the deck, as I think that can be pretty reasonable. The item cards are fairly straightforward. We're just playing really high counts of Ultra, VIP, and Nest Ball. We definitely want to get, you know, Arc, Pidge, and at least a Charmander down on the board. The Mew can help us get there as well, because we have 1 retreat cost on our Charmanders, our Manaphy, and our Pidgeys, so decent amount of outs to try and get into this Mysterious Tail to hit the VIP on turn 1, the Candy on turn 2. If we've gone first and get to double dip the Mysterious Tail, that can be massive. And we also play 2 copies of Artazon to just add to those early ball search counts. I'm also throwing in 1 copy of Level Ball. I think it's slightly stronger than just playing 3rd copy of Nest. The sort of downside is it can't search an Arc V, but the upside is it can help you get Charmeleon in the mid-game, and sometimes that's like a decent option, just so that you're not forced into rare candies throughout the entirety of the game. 4 copies is maximum, but I think you'd honestly play 5 in this deck list. It's so important to find those candies as and when you need them, because you want to have a steady chain of your Charizards quite easily. Thanks to the natural hit points of Zard, you can just set up 2 throughout the game, and then you're just relying on them to do the heavy lifting, because it's so much hit points for the opponent to get through. It's really difficult to churn through these Charizards all that much. The other sort of things to stand out in the list is I'm playing double Collapsed Stadium. I think it's very powerful in the deck list, where we have a number of floating single prize Pokemon that we can be naturally benching, and if Zard is tanking hits, if our Arc or Pidge are taking on damage and not getting knocked out, collapsing these away can be absolutely massive for you and just denying some easy prizes, which is definitely solid. So I do like my kind of trainer lineup, and I like my sort of split with supporters as well. You'll notice I'm playing Colress and Iono as the sort of main drawing ones. The main reason we like Colress is that we're oftentimes looking for that candy combination, right? So we'll often have either Ultra Ball or Pidge or Charizard in hand, and then we're looking for the other side of that combo, which is the rare candy. So having the extension of 5 cards that can be added straight into our hand, and then we cherry pick the right pieces, seems like the best supporter, to be honest with you, rather than just dump and draw from research, because then you're throwing away candies, which would be horrible, or throwing away parts of your evolution line, and that would mean you'd probably need to play extra copies of Super Rod, which just eats into more spaces. So I'm overall pretty happy with this. I could honestly see an extra Gust card coming into the deck, like a Serena or something. Seems very reasonable, because a lot of the time I found you're quick searching and you're just slamming bosses turn by turn by turn, because this has, you know, 2-hit KO potential in the opening stages, and then you work towards that 1-hit KO. So oftentimes people are trying to retreat around you and make their prize map difficult, so you're often just slamming those bosses to make sure you're picking off crucial targets. That's what Pidgeot's been used for quite often, to be honest with you. But yeah, this seems like a really decent baseline. It seems consistent enough. There are challenges with Path Judge. I think those are the main question marks to be asked about Charizard, and I am going to be coming up with different lists as well. There's going to be a list on the channel fairly soon as well that's going to have Big Barrel and Forest Seal Stone as an alternative to Arc and Pidge, because then you are far more robust against Path. You're still going to fall prey to some hand disruption, but a Forest Seal Stone that can be tutored by the likes of Arven could be massive, because Arven can get you Rare Candy plus Forest, and then Forest can get you your Stage 2, and suddenly you're rolling. So I feel like there are alternatives to this approach, but it seems to be the one that sort of hit the ground running and has been quite popular. And to be honest with you, it's just very reasonable that Arc is more powerful when its first Trinity Nova can just use all basic energy and you can grab Choice Belt immediately. Suddenly Arc is like a pressurizing card. It's similar to using like Lugia in the opening stages, whereas we're used to seeing Arc being far less aggressive and just hitting 180 into 2 prizes. It's a different dimension for the deck, really, so I think it's very powerful, and we'll get into some games now and hopefully show that off. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. Alright, looks like our opponent's starting for this first game. We have a pretty solid hand where we have VIP and Colress, as well as a Pidgey start, not too bad. The opponent gets to start with Mew, so it could be Mirror, could be Gardy, could be a couple of things, I guess. Oh, Mysterious Tail for Candy. Then we're going to see an Ultra Ball, and we see Psych Energy, so it is going to be a Gardy matchup here. Should be a pretty interesting one. Of course, do boast a little bit of type coverage, but that's not the whole story. The opponent really doesn't have much, though. Wow. Looks like they really whiffed from their Mysterious Tail, so it's going to have to be a Reversal Energy active, which you hate to see, into the pass. Definitely debating whether or not I should VIP or Colress here. The fact that I want so many basics makes me want to Colress first, and then still have a high likelihood of hitting more basics. I can even go into Mew now as well myself here, if I really want to. Just try and hit more Ball Search. Knowing that we're not really up against a path deck because it's Gardy, quite happy to kind of go a little bit greedier here. And we actually hit our own VIP pass off of this, which is excellent. I can just have the Mew floating, possibly. I am going to end up benching this final Charmander and then just pass things over to the opponents. We have Candy Pidge, which can then get us into Arc next turn, which is looking really good because then we get to cherry pick all sorts. But it does get Iono'd away. The opponent does get into Mirage Step Curlier, but actually bench a Greninja to draw a couple extra cards. I don't really agree with that. They should probably just go Mysterious Tailing there, right? And Mirage Step. Yeah, I don't really agree with that Greninja coming down. Unless they know they have a Curlier prized, right? That's the only reason to make that line. But regardless, they do get a couple additional Curlier outs. Looks like we are just relying on a Mysterious Tail. Fortunately, it does get us there with Ultra Ball, and we are holding on to Charizards and Charmeleons, so it's going to be an Arc pickup here for Starbirth. We could definitely go Candy Pidge, and then the Pidge can get us our next Rare Candy. That's probably going to be our priority here, and that's exactly what we're going for. One Candy gets you into the next, and suddenly the deck is flowing, and we even have a Charmeleon this turn as well, which is looking great. Just the high hit points means I want to go in with Charizard early as well here, to be honest with you, rather than using any of our EX on the bench. Like any of Pidge or Arc, we'd rather just be swinging. Going to hold the energy attachments just to be as flexible as possible. And we are able to initiate the prize race here, which is really nice, especially because we've just seen one Reversal Energy already hit the bin. And I think there's only like 1 or 2 Psych Energy in the discard pile right now, so would be quite difficult for them to reach on us here. I'm expecting this Zard to tank a hit. And because Gardy doesn't really have path in the deck list, we know that we can always Pidgeot our way out of sticky situations for a little bit, so looking pretty good for us right now. The opponent is going to Fog Crystal for a Ralts, and then grab another one out of the deck before refining it away. What's their best turn here? Probably like Cress knockout something. Don't think we have many other fantastic plays. Hitting into the Zard's fine, I guess, with just like a Shining Arcana prod, maybe. We do see the Gardy EX come down now, so they can start spreading some energy around. But turn attachment to Ralts means it's probably going to be an attempt of memory skip. I don't really like this too much. I feel like they should probably take a prize here with Cress. The memory skip is pretty hopeful, right? Because I can always just pay retreat and use another Zard if I really had to. I already have the rope in hand, obviously, so that's going to be good for us. I don't see a reason to not just grab Boss here. Yep, let's just start taking 2 prize knockouts. They need Gardy EX to be in play, so just taking the 2 wallets here seems pretty reasonable to me. We are just going to grab 1 Fire to Zard and then attach Return onto it. We're going to go into our Zard. I'm going to collapse. Maybe this is a little bit proactive, because I could expect that this Zard again in the active could tank another hit here, but I think it's pretty reasonable, mostly because I have no more basic energy in the deck. I don't really want the Arc to be trapped and then my turn to be like Pidge for a DTE and then just like pay retreat. That sounds like really terrible. I want to have the option to do better things, so giving myself maybe a less obvious like Gust out for them to try and like trap me and do a weird play was the logic behind getting rid of my Arc now. But honestly, these 2 Charizards should just cover my last 3 prizes pretty easily. We know that Gardevoir EX has to come back into play at some point, and then I can just find a knockout somewhere else, so even the Pidgeot DTE could be my final prize on like this Mew or something, so definitely didn't really need the Arc at any point from here on out. The opponent does eventually develop their next Gardevoir EX, but they're just so behind in a prize race here. They don't really have many catch-up mechanics, especially because Iono is just so weak for them when I have a Pidge just sat on board. We will see the Arcana Guardi. There's also the Reversal Energy found here. So they do have a decent way of maybe finishing off this Charizard even with a single prize Mon. Let's see if they can make it come together. See the Artazon come in just to free up their bench a little bit before Shining Arcana. And we are going to see the Embrace now onto the bench Gardevoir. They have finally got there with enough Psych Energy and the Reversal. They will be able to knock out this Charizard. But they're just quite behind on prizes, right? I'm 2 attacks away from winning. Pretty handily. We're able to play this Artisan real quick, just in the deck of a Pidge. The idea behind this is that I'm probably going to attack with my Pidgeot in the active this turn. As just the single prize Mon and keep my Zard boss as a play for next turn. I could also go for an Iono play here as well, because I'm knocking out the only draw on board. Yeah, this seems pretty reasonable. Just go for the Iono now, make it difficult for them to piece together a Gust, like, heroic play with a Zacian. Because that's really what they're going to be looking for me to be in any trouble here. If they do Gust the Charizard, I then keep my Pidgeot on board for Quick Search again. So it's looking pretty wrapped up, to be honest with you. Even without Quick Search, I don't currently have Boss's Orders. That's like the only like mild headache. I could always go into Mysterious Tail Mew, try and punt to try and find Ultra Ball out the deck, and then if I do that, I have my next Pidgeot developed. Mostly the idea was to Iono them to make it difficult for them to reach on my Charizard on the bench now. We will see their 1 refinement, and will it get them towards Zacian Heroics? No, it does not, so they're just going to have to concede there. So a nice win against Gardevoir. They did have a slow start, admittedly, but did go second at least. Looks like the opponent is going first as well in this next one. So let's see how our opening hand treats us. Looking not the best, but we do have Artisan and Colress at least. The opponent has a Comfey start, so we're up against some sort of Lost Zone engine. See a gate hit the zone. First of all, Jet Energy means it's most likely going to be Tina, right? Over Turbo builds. See a Manaphy hit the bin for them straight away as well. Or hit the zone, I should say. Into selecting number 3. Seeing a Path hit the zone is helpful for us, but then they instantly play another one. The good news is I do have a bounce in hand. So that's going to be pretty massive for us. Because oftentimes Tina plays 2 Path total. Sometimes they'll play 3 copies, but I feel pretty content that I can proactively play this Artisan now that I've already seen 1 hit the zone, 1 hit the hit play, right? I feel pretty good that I'll have access to abilities next turn, which means I can do this VIP pass into the Charmander play. I'm going to get the attachment onto the Arc, just in case the opponent does go for a Spit Innocently, and then I can maybe just use one of my guaranteed search cards to hit DTE, rather than force myself to use basic energies on Charizard instead. So that's looking pretty decent. The opponent's going to arsenal out another Comfey. Maybe they don't have access to Cram then. As we are going to see just some karting between these guys. They're still fueling the Lost Zone pretty well here. Another Jet Energy comes in. I believe that gets them to 6. So not quite unlocking gates. We do see a Greninja though. Fortunately, we started with the Manaphy, so we should be pretty good. We see the Grass Energy hit the discard pile for a couple more cards. And okay, so they did actually have access to Cram in the end, so they will be able to spit innocently. And now threaten Greninja for the rest of the game. But we have a ton of tutor here now. We have Candy Pidge naturally into Arc V-Star. So that's just really strong. I can Artisan now and just go for an instant Iono and lower their hand size. I feel like that has to be the play. I can see what I draw from these 6 cards and then have 3 guaranteed searches to fix the hand. We actually hit a lot as well. we hit Ultra Ball Candy just naturally. So I can just instantly Charizard now. And yeah, we're just in a really good board state, to be honest with you, with this Infernal Rain. I'm just going to pull 2 energy out the deck. There's maybe an argument for me to putting 1 on like a bench Charmander or something, but I think it's fine like this. I'm just going to grab a supporter for the next turn. I think that's pretty reasonable, and I can even just hold on Starbirth here because I did so well from the 6 cards, and my opponent's not really threatening any one-shot on us right now. No Tina's developed, so looking pretty good there. Really, really good turn 2 for us, right? Double stage 2 and Arc, even without the need for Starbirth. That's pretty massive. Because the opponent has used Spit innocently and taken a 1-prize knockout, this Belted Zard is able to deal with a Tina. So it's actually really bad for them to just put a Tina V down, right? Because I've got Starbirth and I've got Quick Search. So if they don't play a path, they really cannot put a Tina onto this board because they only have 1 board space. If they're going to play down a Tina at any time, it has to be 2 in one go, right? Because otherwise I just immediately punish their 1 bench of a 2-prizer because the Charizard's already able to like gobble it up. So I don't really know what the opponent could do this turn. Maybe like a Greninja, like double hit play onto like Charmander and Arc or something like that. That's probably their best line. Failing that, yeah, I mean, they just have to wait for us to open up the board space. I think them artisaning out the 4th Comfey was like probably a really bad decision. So we have a pretty reasonable Iono play here, because they do have an 11-card hand, but I'm not sure how many we have left in the deck. I don't think it's many, so I don't mind ripping this Colress either. And just sitting on a slightly better hand. Maybe an argument for me to just candy up this turn. Yeah, we are going to Starbirth now. And just develop our next Charizard and just say, well, our board is super meaty, and you have a very difficult 5 prize cards to get through now, because there's 2 big Lizzies out there ready to rumble, and there's not much else I need basically to see game, so we're just going to swing here. Looking pretty solid. The opponent now, they probably need to throw some hand disruption our way. If they have more paths, now's probably the time to use it, and they need to double Tina if they're ever going to have a chance here, because they have to expect that I can, and yeah, straight away we're seeing double Tina. It's probably the right move now, but they really need to throw some hand disruption in the mix, because it's too easy for me to just go Pidgeot Quick Search Boss. I guess they can't really prevent that unless they have more paths. We do draw into a pretty weak hand, and we do see path number 3, so this is the only way they could conceivably not lose on the spot, basically, right? So if I just went for a Charizard knockout on their Tina next turn, they really don't have many ways to come back into this game. Sure, they could get through one of my Charizards with their V-Star power, but then there's the other one to deal with, and I can just sort of 2-shot them to victory quite easily. And they are just going to sit behind a single prize Pokemon. It's exactly what they have to do here to deny the easy 2-prize knockout here. And we didn't draw into any boss, so we probably will just have to go through a single prize mon here, and I'm going to do it getting rid of the path at the same time, just in case the opponent wants to go for a Charizard knockout rather than this Pidgeot. I'm very happy for the opponent to go for a Pidgeot KO, because once again, that Belted Zard on the bench would then be dealing 300, right? So we're very happy for the opponent to deal 280 this turn. It gives us an immediate 300. Then the opponent would have to V-Star power, and they'd be down to 1 prize card, and then the second Charizard, even without belts, would be dealing enough to get through this Tina. So we have a very easy 2-attack game plan here, and the opponent can't really stop it, to be honest with you. Like I said, because I'm actually quite happy for the opponent to take prize cards, I want to go back into the Arceus here, rather than allow them to hit 280 into a Charizard. It could then let them get tricksy with like Sableye plays, and I'd be doing hide and seek with the Tinas. So I'd much rather them to just take the prize cards, and then our Charizard's dealing more damage and setting up checkmate, basically. So yeah, nice win against Lost Zone Tina. The paths are definitely the scariest thing, I think, about their deck list, and it wouldn't surprise me if Lost Zone Tina end up being on triple path going into this next format, just because Charizard EX is a problem for them. We're getting to go first in this third game then, and we're up against an Arc Tina based on the opening mulligan. Our hand's really not great, but we do have Ultra Ball and Candy Zard next turn, so we're going to end up just being content with that, knowing that I can at least be hitting for 180 next turn if we don't get hand disrupted. I'm also holding on to a Stadium Bounce, so if the opponent does jam an early path, I can bounce that and get the Candy Zard still. So it's actually a solid hand for turn 2, just not much in the way of draw power. The opponent is going to get the early Trinity Charge out, which is nice. Not seeing an Iono or a Judge there was at least probably the best news there. But yeah, they're going to get their Tina powered up as well as the Arc in the active. We are able to just Zard straight up here. Means we can get a payment of retreat onto the Manaphy and get swinging with our Burning Darkness. Also going to throw the Colress out there just because the opponent didn't play a supporter, so may as well try and make it difficult for the opponent. I Colress into another Rare Candy, so I think we're going, for a little while at least, without a draw engine and just developing our next Charmander before anything else. Just trying to play out from what's in hand right now, rather than, you know, just getting an Arc developed or something like that and playing a little bit better around Judge. But the fact is, they're probably going to Judge and Path at the same time, right? So it doesn't really matter if it's an Arc or a Pidge or whatever. May as well be as Charmander that I can turn attached to. So even if I am stuck against a Path, I can still try and slow power up the Charmander. The opponent does access their V-Star, so they will be Star Birthing now. They actually got rid of a Lost City, so I imagine, yeah, it's going to be a Path to the Peak Judge combo. The classic plays from an Arc player, right? To try and slow us down that little bit more. We actually do quite well off the Judge. We hit a Colress, and I found a Stadium Bounce that I can try and do for this Arc, so... And because the Artazon can get me Pidge as well, it's looking pretty solid for us. I think we're going to do this first. It also resets the... Oh no, it was a Judge, so it wasn't resetting for Iono. I was thinking about Rare Candy in case that was at the bottom, but yeah, it's a random hand. Yep, looks like candies are the best part of this deck, to be honest with you, so just cashing in now on my next Charizard is pretty massive. And just saying that's ready to rumble. Because they're just so big and so difficult to deal with. Because I got the first hit in as well, this sort of like two-shot the first one and then like one bung the rest is like such a powerful strategy here. We're going to just Burning Darkness, take the knockout. Couple Ultra Balls from prizes, that's fine. So they can two-shot this Charizard in response. They really need to V-Star their bench as well, so I don't have an easy boss prize. That's kind of the big thing for them now. They can Ultra Ball away a couple boss, and they do find their next V-Star. And it will be an Iono to throw us away from Candy Pidge, which is a shame, but we do get straight into Arc V-Star of our own. So if they don't bounce with Path here, we will be able to Starbirth. Which is looking pretty solid. The opponent was able to get their Tina developed, and they do throw a Path at us, but we also have Collapsed, so that's pretty solid. So they will finish off the Zard. And we're going to go into our own Arc here. We actually rip the double turbo from the top deck, so I don't even have to Starbirth for that. I still will Collapse Stadium and get a Starbirth in. I think a supporter would be decent, but also just Candy Pidge. And then Quick Search after that could be reasonable. Yeah, we're just going to go for an Iono to reset the hand a little bit here. And I don't mind just slamming into this V-Star. I really don't mind them coming in with their Giratina here. It's not too scary for me. They'd be taking the two prizes, but they would then set up Charizard for the KO. Quite happily. They could go for the 280, then I could like gust up and finish off this Arc V-Star. And then they wouldn't really have many ways to close the game, right? It would have to be exactly gust into Pidge. I guess that's the way things go a little bit wrong. Oh no, because if they go for the arc, I just hit through the Tina V-Star, right? And I don't care about the Box of Disaster damage. Still not enough for this arc to finish me off. So yeah, because they only have one big hitter developed, I'm pretty okay with sending in my arc. Just because this Charizard sets up checkmates, right? The more prizes the opponent takes, the more dangerous this card becomes. Where we just become this one-hit KO machine gun. No downside to the attack whatsoever, it just sort of sits on board and improves. The opponent is going to play an Escape Rope. I do have my own rope in hand, so I'm pretty okay going into Manaphy. But again, this just shows that I'm so happy to send in Pidgeot that, like, them taking 2 prizes doesn't scare me in any way. It actually improves my win condition, right? Because then I just become an easy 2-turn clock of like, well, I have a Zard finishing off this Tina, and then you really can't do anything. So, yeah, it really is just us boasting how powerful this Charizard is. That literally, we don't care about them taking the lead in 2 prize cards here because we just sit with game, basically. So much so the opponent's actually going to switch out of their Tina and play an Iono. But also just, if they just hit into this Pidge, I can just go back into the V-Star again, the Arc V-Star, and I'm still in fine shape, right? They can never one-hit KO this Charizard in this list, so we're basically always Gucci. Again, the Charizard stats are just so Lord humongous that it's pretty absurd. We can thin the deck of this Charmeleon before going for a Candy Zard play here. I can actually quick search for Rod for some energy reload. And really just tighten the screw a little bit more. Get the next lizard developed. Means I can even get energy onto a Manaphy now as well, so I'm not getting trapped anywhere. Oh, I'm surprised I didn't take the energy out there, to be honest with you. Probably should have. No real reason to not. And once again, I keep saying, really happy to just give up the 2 prize cards here, because if they take 2 more prize cards, then Charizard's 1 bugging, so yeah, it feels fairly close to a checkmate here. The opponent literally not allowed to take prize cards. They had a 2 prize card turn on our Pidge last turn, but chose not to, knowing that their Tina would just go down immediately. And they've not really changed the situation in any way, shape, or form here. I think their best win condition here would be going for a coin flip big barrel play on our Pidge and just hope that we didn't have boss in hand. I think that was actually their only way to win this game. Would be a coin flip Heads of Tail Smack onto a Pidge EX. Yeah, that's basically the only thing they could have done here. They're basically prolonging their turn here. I mean, we don't win on the spot by them not taking prizes this turn, but it's still fine. We eventually end up putting the energy on the Manaphy, which is quite funny. I'm able to quick search again. I basically just want to take cards out of the deck which are no longer helpful to us, so we're going to grab an Ultra Ball, grab another card, trying to play around, basically just Iono, right? And we are going to deactivate the Box of Disaster just by hitting for 240. And again, yeah, this Tina is their last stand, and they're not going to be able to take 4 prize cards with it. Again, I still feel like if they could have found a switch card and just hit with the barrel here, with the Gust of Pidge, that would have been, again, their best play. Or even just not gusting. Yeah, I guess they had to gust, right? Because if they just barrel through the Charizard, I could Pidgeot EX for boss. So, yeah, they really had to try and take a 50-50 with the barrel to ever have a chance of winning this game, and hoping that I didn't have boss in hand. But the whole time, I never even needed to quick search for the boss. It was just there in hand. So, yeah, all good. A pretty nice checkmate against Arctina there as well. So, basically sweeping everything and setting up checkmate, basically, against everything, like by turn 3 or 4. That seems to be the way this deck works if you actually get into the game. And the one thing I have found is that it is slightly a high-maintenance deck at times, and that's, you know, still the nature of the beast, that you need to have multiple basics in the opening turns to actually get anything done. Yes, one of the games we got the job done with a slow, like, one Charizard at a time situation, and that sometimes can work out for you, but just having the raw Rare Candy Zard isn't always the easiest, so something to bear in mind, and I think this game demonstrates it quite well, especially our weakness to Path to the Peak, right, and that's fairly evident as the opponent gets the VIP pass going with Greninja, is able to switch card into Comfey, and we're really just living on a top deck plus Mysterious Tail, right? If this Tail doesn't go well, we're going to have a very, very bad turn, and the opponent drops the Path just to add insult to injury. We do rip the VIP pass, so we're not out of the woods yet. Or I guess we're not just completely out of the game. We can get our Arc Charmander, can get the Manaphy to protect Charmander a little bit better. Definitely debate to attaching energy here. A debate to attaching to Charmander, so that if I top deck Charizard, I can just turn attach even under path. I go for the Arc, which I think is maybe a little bit less powerful, because this is basically putting me in a situation where I need to top deck into Supporter. So I think looking back on this energy should have gone on to Charmander. The opponent's able to switch cut out of their Greninja, carrying on Flower Selecting. See Jet Energy now as well, so that's going to get them easily to 4 for Cram. So things are going pretty well for them. But yeah, you can see the dark side of just getting a Stage 2 deck, right? Where we just have the candies and not the other half of the deck. So yeah, we're going to have to promote the Manaphy here because we have not many top decks. It's literally just supporter top decks, which are only outs at this stage. And they just don't seem to be coming our way. I now try and attach to the Charmander when it's much, much worse. But there you go. The opponent can continue to Colress. I believe they're at 8 now. Maybe can start unlocking some gates. I think a rope play here would be pretty devastating because they're still threatening gates knockout on our Arceus. So it's all looking pretty rough. But basically, just a dead hand. And I think sometimes you see, we've seen some Exodia stuff, right, where there was that turn where I got double Stage 2s up and Arc V-Star swinging without the need for Starbirth even. Sometimes you get that Exodia, and sometimes you just get the duds like this. And I think that's, basically been the only losses I've experienced so far with the list, is that either an early path sticks you, or you just have this kind of garbage low roll. No basics really to speak of on the opening turns, and I do think the new Pidgey from 151 in September is going to improve this deck even more. That's not to say it's not powerful right now, and we get the Charizard just a little bit too late, so we're going to have to scoop there. But yeah, overall, I think you can see in the games where we do set up, we're a very powerful deck that have a lot of answers to a lot of the format, just very meaty, very high damage output as we reach those latter stages of the game, and causes headache for a ton of archetypes, with a great amount of search in the deck as well to cherry pick some crucial supporter cards is the main thing that sticks out. But I do think this isn't like the most consistent deck in formats. I think it is, however, going to still end up being a tier 1 deck, just because the stats are so insane on this card, and it seems to get into the game plenty of times. So that's it for my Pidgeot build of Charizard. I'm going to be coming at you at some point later, probably next week, with a Bibarel build as well, which is a little bit less explosive and a little bit less safe overall than a Pidge, which can guarantee cards throughout the entire game, whereas Bibarel is cycling throughout the entire game. But having Bibarel for a Sealstone is far less worried about Path of the Peak, so that's the big upside there. And even just Arven is really handy to help cherry pick out some rare candies. So let me know your thoughts down below, and this is the first of many, hopefully, new Obsidian Flames deck lists. So see you soon tomorrow for another one. Cheers.